Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We stand at a pivotal crossroads in history, an era that could mark the pivot from war to peace in one of the world's most turbulent regions. A new era of peace is not just a phrase. It's a prayer answered, a dream awakened, and a responsibility placed squarely on our shoulders. In the heart of every nation's story, there are moments that define a generation, moments when history takes a breath, shifts its weight, and sets its gaze on a new horizon. This ceasefire between Iran and Israel is one of those moments. It is not merely a political agreement signed in a boardroom, it is a sacred pause in the chaos of human suffering. It is a signal that even in a region long marked by conflict and mistrust, the seeds of something different, something divine, and still take root. The world has watched for decades as these two powers stood locked in a posture of aggression. For many, peace in the Middle East seemed more like a distant dream than a living possibility. But something changed. Somewhere in the silence between missile strikes and broken treaties, voices began to rise, not of generals or politicians, but of the people. Parents longing for their children to grow up in peace, farmers hoping to till their land without fear, students praying for a future that didn't begin and end with conflict. This moment is not just a break in the fighting, it is a reset in the human spirit. It reminds us that history, though often stained by war, is also marked by redemption, that in the very places where destruction has reigned, healing can begin. And though the ink of peace may still be wet, its message is clear. There is still time to choose a different path. What the world sees today is not just diplomacy, it is a testimony that no matter how long hatred has endured, peace is still possible, and that perhaps in this hour we are witnessing the hand of God moving gently but surely across the landscape of a weary region. When we speak of war, we often hear about strategies, borders, and headlines, but rarely do we pause long enough to see the faces, those silent testimonies of suffering etched into the lives of ordinary people. The true cost of conflict cannot be measured in military victories or territorial lines. It is written in the eyes of a mother holding her lifeless child. It's found in the trembling hands of a father who has no answer for where the next meal will come from. It is the sobering reality that peace delayed means another day of unimaginable sorrow for countless families. Behind every statistic is a soul. Behind every collapsed building is a story interrupted. Children who should be learning, playing, dreaming, now spend their days fleeing, hiding, surviving. Their innocence has been traded for trauma, their laughter replaced by silence. We must never become so numb to the news that we fail to weep for them. And yet, even in the darkest corners of devastation, compassion still rises. Workers who risk their lives to bring water to the thirsty, neighbors who share the last piece of bread with the hungry, prayers whispered in shelters, not for revenge, but for relief, for peace. This is where humanity shows its brightest colors, when we choose mercy over anger, tenderness over retaliation. This ceasefire is more than a geopolitical shift. It is a reprieve for the wounded and weary. It is a chance to breathe again, to bury the dead with dignity, to mend what was broken. And as we reflect on the suffering, may it not lead us to despair, but to action. May it move us to empathy, to generosity, to stand as voices for the voiceless. Because the truest measure of our humanity is how deeply we feel the pain of others. Peace is not simply the result of treaties or the silence of guns. True peace flows from a much deeper well. It begins in the heart, long before it reaches the negotiating table, and it is rooted not in human effort alone, but in the eternal truths that have guided people through every storm and season of history. At the center of every lasting peace is a spiritual foundation, something unshakable, something higher than politics, something divine. For centuries, the longing for peace has echoed through the pages of Scripture and the prayers of the faithful. We read, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." That promise is not just poetic, it is prophetic. It reminds us that peace is not passive. It is active, it is a calling, and those who pursue it are walking in step with the very heartbeat of heaven. This moment of ceasefire presents not only a political opportunity, but a spiritual invitation, an invitation to forgive, to reconcile, to see not enemies, but fellow human beings made in the image of God. The walls of hostility cannot fall until the walls in the heart begin to crumble. That's where peace truly begins, in the quiet, unseen corners of the soul, where pride is laid down and humility is lifted up. And if there is to be hope for a new era in the Middle East, or anywhere else, it will not be because men simply agreed, but because hearts were changed. Because somewhere in the stillness a whisper was heard, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." That kind of peace does not fade. It is eternal, it is holy, and it has the power to reshape not just nations, but lives. With the guns quieted and the dust of battle slowly settling, what lies ahead is more than just the absence of war. It is the presence of possibility. For the first time in years, there is space to build, to restore, to breathe. The broken walls, shattered homes, and silenced classrooms now stand as open invitations, not to despair but to determination. And in this sacred pause there is opportunity for something far greater than physical reconstruction. There is a chance to rebuild hope. Children can return to their schools, not to duck beneath desks in fear, but to lift their eyes toward a future filled with knowledge and purpose. Hospitals that once echoed with cries of urgency can now become places of healing and renewal. Markets can reopen. Farmland can be tilled again. Fathers can return to honest work. Mothers can sleep at night without wondering if their children will live to see another sunrise. But the greatest reconstruction is not measured in bricks or roads. It is in relationships. When former enemies choose to sit at the same table, to extend a hand instead of a fist, the groundwork is laid for generations to thrive. It takes courage to rebuild. It takes faith to believe that what was lost can somehow be restored. And it takes vision, clear, steady, unwavering vision to guide that work forward. Let this ceasefire not be a pause before another storm, but the beginning of something permanent, something pure, a chance for both nations to write a new story, one marked not by vengeance but by value, value for human life, value for truth, value for the sacred gift of peace. And may those who lead have the wisdom to see not just what was, but what could be, because the future, fragile as it may seem, is still in their hands. This moment in history is not just for the Middle East. It speaks to all of us, wherever we live, whatever language we speak, whatever faith we hold. When peace is within reach, it demands something from every heart that dares to care. We cannot afford to look the other way. We cannot pretend that the suffering of others is somehow disconnected from our own call to compassion. This is not just their moment, it is ours. The world has grown weary of conflict. Our screens are filled with images of grief, yet too often our hearts remain unmoved. But when a ceasefire like this is born, out of exhaustion, yes, but also out of a flicker of mutual hope, it calls for more than applause. It calls for participation, for prayer, for generosity, for moral courage. Nations may sign the documents, but it is the people of the world who must carry the spirit of peace forward. We must advocate for the vulnerable, speak for the voiceless, and support those who are working, often in the shadows, to feed the hungry, shelter the displaced, and counsel the broken-hearted. Governments can open doors, but only love walks through them. And love, true love, never stays silent when justice and mercy are on the line. Let this not be a fleeting chapter, but a foundation for a new legacy. We are stewards of this peace, not spectators. It is not enough to say, "Isn't that good news?" We must ask, "What can I do?" Because the answer to war is not just diplomacy, it is solidarity. It is the world rising together to say enough. And when we choose to carry one another's burdens across oceans and borders, we become the answer to the very prayers we've been praying. So tonight, as this new era dawns, let our prayer and our action be one. O Lord of nations, shape our hearts to be peacemakers. Grant that this ceasefire be more than a truce, but the doorway to lasting peace. May history say, in that moment, we chose hope over despair, unity over division, rebuilding over revenge. The path ahead is long, but with faith, courage, and collective will, this could be the dawn of a new era of peace.